guys
Hello.
ready for
Hi.
a real slow build?
Yes.
I
Yes.
guess I'll say hi now too. Hi,
Hi,
Hey.
I'm Oliver the Ricketts.
I am Brittany, and there's a spider on my head.
I'm Jeremy.
We're a little late to the party on this one, but we're about to go see First Man.
Yes.
It's okay, we were slow seeing it. It's gonna be a slow movie. It's fitting.
I'm excited about this only because I like space. I like movies about space travel.
You
Well,
said the
you-
exact words I was going to say.
You can still say it.
I love space.
I'm a mixed bag on the director. I love Whiplash, and I hate La La Land. So we'll see where I fall with this, because this will really be the one that decides if I like this guy's movies or not.
I don't have very many expectations. I've only seen the one trailer, and I've only seen it maybe 2 or 3 times.
I love space. I don't really know a lot that's going on with this movie other than it's about Neil Armstrong, probably. And I was thinking a lot about it on the way to this movie, and I guess I don't know a lot about the story of how they got to the moon, other than that they got there and it was a huge, feat that we got to the fucking moon. That's
Right.
crazy. So, I love space, so I'm excited for that reason.
I really hope it's more Apollo 13 and less I'm gonna fall asleep.
Not too science-y, only because I think with the right director it works. Like Ridley Scott was the right guy to do that for The Martian, but a lot of people fumble that when they try to do it because it turns into a lecture. I'm really hoping that this movie doesn't turn into a lecture, and I'm also really hoping that it's not too heavy-handed with this is an art film, because I don't want that. I want a movie about going to the moon.
I want to be wowed by the moon too.
I wouldn't mind a bit of science. I like that stuff.
I hope that they can present, if they are going to do science, no problem with that, but I hope that they can remember that it is a movie and that I would like to be entertained as well.
Right. I'm not. I love space and all things celestial and the cosmos and all that stuff, but I don't really like the technical, science-y aspect that goes into that.
I'm just hoping to spend more time on the moon and less time in a lab. But this one really was on a soundstage.
Oh.
And that one too, actually. Steven Spielberg directed it.
Let's go see the movie.
Wow. So we made it through
In a manner of speaking.
Barely.
somehow. Here's the thing. Every year around Oscar season, there's 1 or 2 movies where I have to look at it and go, I don't get how people are going and seeing that, recommending it to their friends, and enjoying it. Last year for us, it was The Darkest Hour, which I believe all 3 of us walked out of.
And also The Post.
Oh, The Post was no good either. And I will say The Post had scenes that I did enjoy.
This
But
didn't
it
have
is-
scenes you enjoyed?
Yeah, it had 1, and it wasn't the moon. This is one of the most dull, boring movies I've seen in the last couple of years. It's just a lot of depressing, angsty exposition. We get 10 minutes on the moon, and you don't see them do anything at the moon that they couldn't do on Earth. I know I said I didn't want the science before we went in there, but if they weren't going to tell a story, they may as well have hit me with some science, because they didn't do either of those things. I don't like Damien Chazelle, the director. I've decided that. La La Land was awful, and I don't like this movie either. Whiplash is a fucking masterpiece. I don't know what happened there. But I also don't think that I like Ryan Gosling very much anymore. I think he's just being Drive.
Ryan Gosling was absolutely it's terrible in this movie. He had this one face that he made all the time that got on my nerves, and I can't exactly explain why.
You were able to discern different faces? 'Cause
No,
I just felt
it
he
was the one over and
the
over
same
again.
face
That was
over and over.
that's what I'm. It was
Okay.
probably that face.
Gotcha.
He wasn't doing fucking anything. It's such a shame because you say that there was only one scene in the movie that you liked. There were a fair number of sequences in the movie that I really enjoyed, but once you string them all together and you put everything else in between, it just
Man, it's
just
hard.
yeah, it was just hard. In that sense, I think that the whole is a lot less than the sum of its parts.
I'm not a stupid person. I'm not dumb. I'm not saying I'm the smartest person alive, but like, I just felt like there was a lot of this movie that just didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't explained enough. And for a movie that was so long and so drawn out, to have things that were ambiguous and unclear, it doesn't make any sense to me. Take some of that time that you're using to give 700 close-ups on the same fucking face and tell me what like fucking mission we're in, where he's flying from. There was so much going on that I was just like, what the fuck is even happening here? You know, there was so much shakiness of the camera that it's like you couldn't even make out what they were trying to do. I slept through a lot of it. I mean,
Me too,
granted, it was a late movie and it's a long movie and it's a slow movie. If you can't keep my interest and I'm falling asleep, there's a problem.
We both fell asleep in this movie,
I did not.
and I'm not a person with a short attention span when it comes to movies. Maybe with other things. I love cinema. So for a movie to really put me to sleep, it's a real rarity. I remember falling asleep and waking up and going, oh, I don't even care, man.
Normally, if I like want to watch a movie and I'll try to keep myself awake, I'll sit there, I'll sit up a little bit more.
Right.
You know, I'll go get something to drink. Like, you know, I'll make myself stay awake. This one, I just literally turned over, snuggled up in my blanket. I was like, I'm done with this.
And I don't think it made a difference in my understanding of what was going on.
Nope.
This
No.
being said,
I was able to see him on the moon and understand that he made it to the moon.
right.
Yeah, well, but you already, going into the movie, you know he's already going to make it to the moon, which is kind of a problem for me. They have these scenes where it's like, oh, his life is supposed to be in danger, but I do
But we know that he
know
lived.
how this story ends.
Right.
I know that it's going to turn out fine. Figuring out how he gets there isn't going to mean anything because I don't know enough about space travel, and the movie didn't give me enough information about space travel to tell me how he fixed the problem.
And it's hard to tell what they wanted to do because they're not giving you a science lesson, they're not giving you a history lesson, and they're not entertaining you.
So if you're not going to be factual or relative or making sense, then you might as well entertain.
Right. I can be entertained by both science and especially history. I love history, especially about the space program.
It's funny because we talked to my grandparents earlier about this movie. You know, my grandparents are they love our country. They didn't appreciate the fact that they very rarely talked about America and what an accomplishment this was for our country, our nation, you know, how unifying it was and what a big deal it was. And it was a big deal, which is why they worked on it for so long, which is why they put so much money into it, which is why there was this space race happening, because of how important it was to our country to come out on top in that area. There's like no mention of this being an American achievement.
Right, which is...
And even when they put the flag up, it's like a side shot.
With the patriotism is a big part of the history of landing on the moon itself. You can't tell me that it wasn't going on, because it was. There was so much stuff about America is going to get to the moon, and America versus the Russians. Oh, some people have issues with this country, and that's, you know, whatever. You know, I'm not one of those people, but at the time, people loved this country and wanted to make it to the moon.
And if you're gonna make a movie about one of the most important moments in our American history, right?
They spent more time showing people that had doubts about the spending on the space program than
Right.
they did
Than
on
people who wanted to go to the moon.
And you're just like, what the fuck? I spent the last 2 hours and 15 minutes waiting for this to happen. It happens, and now it's just like, okay, we're done now.
And I get to watch him stare at his wife. And
Stare at
do
his
nothing.
Yeah.
emotionless fucking robotic wife.
I want to go back to the way the movie looks,
Hmm.
because the money is definitely all there, especially for a director like Damien Chazelle, who everybody wants to work with right now. Oh, I just don't understand how the movie turned out so ugly. There are some really big set pieces in this movie that could, in another better movie, could have been really cool scenes. But what the director chooses to do is any new shots that we get are shaky cam, so you can't make out what's happening. all of the close-ups are like this, so you can't see what the shot is of. And he'll cycle through the same 3 long shots, so it's not footage that you've technically seen before, but you can tell it was one shot of outside the rocket, one shot of Ryan Gosling's face, one shot of some dials, and we're just going to cycle through those so you don't get a good understanding of what's happening. So much so that after I watch the thing happen, I need a scene of them explaining, oh, this is what just happened. And I should be able to tell just by looking at it. And that's a really, really big issue with your storytelling. You know, and that's part of what made this movie so boring. Another big thing, and you were saying the moon was the most anticlimactic thing about this movie, especially after you waited 2 whole hours to get there, and everything going on Earth is so boring and just so pointless to the whole story.
You said it. Like, we went to the moon and we didn't see them do anything interesting. I get that, like, to watch someone on the moon doing things, not everything is gonna be entertaining,
right?
But he didn't give me anything.
Hey, if I was watching someone in real life be on the moon, that's fine, and that's, you know, different on its own right, because I'm watching it really happen.
Right.
I'm watching Ryan Gosling pretend to be on the moon.
And they probably picked up rocks for a little bit, and like, well, what are you gonna do?
The whole thing with the dead daughter was so, like, pointless to the story too.
It's sad. He obviously dealt with a lot of loss in his life. I think that made it very hard for him to emote what was going on with him, because the loss was so overwhelming. I didn't care about it, unfortunately.
I saw a little girl die of cancer in the first 5 minutes, and I felt nothing for it, which is really sad. It's kind of like scummy to even have it in the movie as much as they do, because we're talking about a real little girl and a real family tragedy. You should acknowledge it, and it can even be part of the story, but when you have nothing else to say, so you just keep bringing up this little girl, not only does it feel cheap to me as an audience member, but I feel like it's a little, like, exploitive of the tragedy that they went through. I'm going to give this movie a D+. No, fuck that. I'm going to give this movie an F. There wasn't a lot to entertain me with. The only thing that I can really say was redeemable was the sound design. So in that department, somebody did a good job, which is why it's not an F-. Other than that, don't see this movie.
What was the one scene that you liked?
Oh,
actually?
I
wanted to know.
liked the most stylish scene in the movie is when you first meet Buzz Aldrin and they're looking at the rocket, and you have the black hippie saying "But Whitey's on the moon." That is a really cool scene where not a lot happens. And if you had the whole movie be stylish like that, I at least could have given it something and said, okay, well, at least there was a clear vision here, but there wasn't.
I feel bad. I'm going to be a bit kinder. I'm going to give it, I was going to give it a C-. There were some scenes that I did enjoy watching, and I just think it could have been so much better. I could see myself watching some scenes again, because I liked how they went down and trying to, like, take something out of that. Like, just barely, but it did keep me engaged enough to actually, like, watch the whole movie.
I'm giving it a D-. It bored me to sleep, and the redeeming qualities weren't redeeming enough. And it was a movie that wanted to be a lot smarter and artistic than it actually was. And nowadays, I feel like a lot of these movies are trying to get off on being something that's like, oh, well, you know, you didn't like it because you didn't get it. And it's like, fuck off. He went to the fucking moon. There's nothing to not get. I get it. And I wanted to see it.
Yeah, me too. Really bad.
And it's disappointing when I want to see a movie, I want to know what happens, and I come out the other end and I was like, this is fucking crap. I'm done with this. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I think I said everything I wanted to say.
Yeah, there's not much more to talk about here.
I lowered it a bit, but
well, if you do,
C- for now.
If you do, tweet it.
Tweet it. I don't know a Twitter.
Me neither.